Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kailin and I post new videos every single Saturday with a few sprinkled in between. And I post videos mainly about eating disorder recovery and intuitive eating. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would love for you to click onto that subscribe button down below and become part of our little family. But for today's video, we are going to be doing a Q&A. I love doing these on my channel every now and then. I just find that they are so incredibly fun. This Q&A is sort of going to be a mixture of personal questions as well as recovery-based questions because I always get those in every single Q&A. So without further ado, let's get right on in with the video. I have all of the questions on my laptop right in front of me, either from Instagram or from my YouTube community page. So if you ever want to participate in a Q&A in the future, make sure that you look out on those two platforms because I'm always asking for your opinion and for your questions. So let's just start with a juicy one right off the bat. Somebody asked, what do you think is toxic in the recovery community / why are you so hesitant to promote other accounts? The recovery community is something that I have a lot of difficulty with. I've spoken about this on a couple of other videos, and I'm sure that that's what prompted several people to ask this question of what I see as toxic, or I guess my hesitancy. And I think that there are a lot of toxic things in the recovery community. I think that there are a lot of people who are not recovered, even though that they claim to be. And what I mean by that is I see people who claim to be recovered, but they still follow very strict food rules. They still use very polarizing language around food, which I think the consequence of that is it gives recovery, or what it means to be recovered, sort of a false image where you can still follow some of your rules but live a quote unquote recovered life, which I don't think is true. I think one of the main issues that I have is just there's a lot of people who need more help but who are offering their own services as help. So for example, I've seen plenty of recovery coaches who are still very in it themselves and very sick, and therefore the consequence of that is through their own coaching, they give tips or advice which is actually disordered and not helpful and can actually harm somebody more in the long run versus help them. And it's not to say that I am standing on a high horse and I am better than everybody else, because that is definitely a false statement. I am not. I still learn, I still make mistakes. But I also know that I guard my audience with this sort of mama bear protective instinct. I am so incredibly careful about the things that I say, the things that I show, the products that I promote, the words that I even use to describe things. I am so careful, and I feel like that care is potentially missing from some other recovery environments that I have seen. But for me, a lot of the toxic signs are when people are using polarizing language like healthy, unhealthy, good, or bad. And somebody shares useless information, right? Information that is not helpful to anybody, like calories, like what we're consuming, like how much we weigh, what our lowest weight was, etc. Those are all super unhelpful and kind of like a red flag or a warning sign. If I hear any person mention them, it's kind of a sign that I'm like, this is not a safe place to be. And the reason that I'm hesitant to sort of promote other accounts is because in the past, there have been accounts that I have found that I thought were great and I watched them for a while and then it just, something happens. And I don't want to sort of recommend accounts and have people follow them and then consequently be triggered. I don't want that to be on me or my burden to sort of carry. And so it's quite rare that I promote an account, but when I do, fingers crossed, I hope that it is a helpful one. The next question is, what are some of my goals for this year? I love this question. It is currently March and I've had the shittiest start to the year ever. Some things that I'm not willing to talk about on social media and other things in general that have just been extremely tough. Like dealing with seasonal depression and having my anxiety increase a lot recently. It's something that I've spoken about on multiple of my platforms. But yeah, it's been just a really shitty 3 months. And during those 3 months, I truly wasn't able to prioritize YouTube in the way that I would have liked to. I feel like in 2021, I was doing everything that I really wanted to do with YouTube. I was posting very frequently and I felt very much myself. Only recently do I feel like I've been lifted out of the sort of depression fog, and I feel a lot more motivated when it comes to filming videos and just being a support again for others. And so some of my goals this year, some are more personal and then others are more career focused. So let's talk about personal goals. I want to get my driver's license. I'm 25 years old. It is a huge goal for me. I've had my permit for years. I just want to get my license. That is a big thing. I also want to continue working on my book. I took a very big break from working on it, mainly because, as I mentioned, I was very depressed. And so now that I'm feeling more like myself, I actually started picking it up again yesterday. And so we are getting back into the flow of things. And then from a more professional standpoint, I am working on a secret project, one of my first secret projects. I really hope for it to be released in 2023. So I'm not going to talk about it too much or even tease it much at all. It's just something that I'm really excited about that I'm working on. And I just want to continue my coaching business, which is thriving and doing so well, and continuing to post over here on YouTube as well as on TikTok, which you should follow me if you don't already. We have a lot of fun over there. Somebody asked, does being recovered look exactly like what you thought it would be? And the answer to that is no, it's not. And the reason that I'm saying that is because on one hand, it's a lot better than I thought it would be. I have so much brain space. I have so much love and appreciation for my body, which I've never had before in my entire life. Even as a small child, I always found something to critique. And so the fact that I can look at myself through a different lens, I think is incredible, given everything that I've ever said to myself in the past. And on the other hand, it is definitely difficult because I fully believe that recovery is just something that we have to do for the rest of our lives. It's not like we hit a point and then everything is easy all the time 24/7 and we never ever have a doubt or our inner critic never comes up. It doesn't work that way. I potentially was a bit naive to think that I would never have to be, careful again or look out for my warning signs or relapse signs or anything like that. But that's not true. We have relapse prevention skills for a reason, and that's because it could particularly be easy to fall back depending on your mental state and what's going on. Whether you are very depressed or anxious or very stressed or going through grief, these are all things that play a role in your recovery journey. And that's something that I'm also learning throughout this process, is that it's a lifetime commitment, which is a scary thing, but a lifetime commitment to this is so much better than living life with an eating disorder forever. So on one hand, it's more magical and more amazing than I could have ever imagined and ever envisioned for myself. But on the other hand, it is something that is still challenging, and that was not something that I had originally expected. Somebody asked what my current food obsession is. I love these kinds of questions. Recently, I've been into soup a lot, as well as this honey mustard salad. It's incredible. I think I'm gonna show you in next week's vlog how I make the dressing, but it's so good and it's so fresh. I love it. It is like the Easter months, so I'm also obsessed with mini eggs, because who the heck doesn't like mini eggs? I don't know, I can't name one person. Somebody asked how to cope with diet culture when it is all around you. I wish we can change the world together, baby, but we've got to take small steps. And the first step just simply starts with you and understanding and validating that you do not have to participate in something just because other people are. And I know it can feel strange and almost like we're doing something wrong when we are straying away from what is seen as like conventional, or what is seen as, everybody's rite of passage, which is dieting and hating themselves, which is not a rite of passage that I want to partake in. But the goal of food freedom, intuitive eating, being anti-diet, etc., is not so much of changing the people around you. If they do change because of the example that you're setting or because of the resources that you share, that is amazing and that is great. But our goal is not to change them, it's just to change the way that we actually hear what they are saying. So for example, if we're hearing two people talk about dieting, instead of feeling like, oh my goodness, is that something that I should be doing? We want to change the way we actually hear and engage in the conversation. So again, two people are talking about dieting, and instead of us feeling guilt or like we're doing something wrong, we want to replace that more with a sadness that two individuals are wasting wasting time in their life, right? Just trying to make themselves small or just trying to shrink themselves down. Sad that they are investing more money and more time into something that is proven, scientifically proven to not work. The main goal is to change how you think about these conversations and the impact that it has on you. So when we hear of others engaging in diet culture, we want to sort of have some affirmative statements that we can either make or say to ourselves that ground us in our own decision to not partake. Why don't you want to partake in diet culture? What has diet culture done to you or given to you? What has dieting brought to you or given to you? Chances are the list of consequences / cons is a lot longer than our list of pros. And so sometimes simply grounding ourselves again in our reason why can be helpful when we hear diet culture around us. And if it is in more nuclear spaces or more intimate spaces, to try to have potentially a tougher conversation with friends and family and create stronger boundaries of what is appropriate and inappropriate, especially in your own presence. But if that's not an option, just to give yourself some space and remind yourself of why you're doing it in the first place. Tying into this question, we have how to find a why in eating disorder recovery. And I actually have an entire video on my page. It's called 100 Reasons to Recover. I'm going to link it in the description down below. So if you're struggling with finding a why yourself, hopefully you can find one within that video. Or multiple. Somebody asked, what are the frustrating parts about being a business owner or owning your own business? And there are a lot of pros, definitely a lot of pros, but there are also some cons. When we are talking about cons, the two things that probably get me the most, or just, I don't know, they frustrate me the most. One are taxes. Taxes are so confusing, and I'm so upset that they were not taught in school because it's a whole new world for me. It is a whole new world. Before, my employer would give me my T4 and we're all good. I just, give things to the accountant. And now that I have, a self-employed business, taxes get a lot more tricky, but I've been keeping track of everything and we are good. Tax season is among us. And the second thing that I think is frustrating is being ghosted. That is something that is frustrating, whether those are from, brands, in negotiation because of payments, whether those are with, potential clients who we set up consultations for, and then the meeting starts and nobody shows up and there's no follow-up email or no apology or nothing at all. There's just no response. I do give that a little bit more leeway, I guess, because we're dealing with very complicated times, lots of heavy emotion. So sometimes answering an email is really not on our priority list. But sometimes I'm just waiting around and I'm unsure if I should reach out to somebody else on my wait list or if this person is, debating a choice back and forth. But yeah, being ghosted is probably a little bit frustrating at times. But yeah, I truly love what I do. I love what I do more than anything that I've ever done in my life. I feel like I have a lot of purpose. I feel very loved and appreciated by my clients, and I love and appreciate every single one of them. Every single one of my clients has touched me in a way that I cannot put into words. Like I cannot and wouldn't ever be able to tell them the way that they've sort of shaped and molded my life. I love them all. So if you are one of them, hi, I'll see you this week. There are definitely frustrating parts, but I would never change it, not for the world. One of the questions that I got was asking if I could share some examples of fat phobia in popular media. And I have an entire video on that as well that I'm going to link below, which is called Fat Phobia in Media or Fat Phobia in Hollywood. I'm not exactly sure what I titled it, but that will be linked in the description down below. Somebody asked, I lack a lot of motivation in recovery. Please, what can I do? Hi, my love. My biggest tip is to find accountability somewhere. It is so hard to do this on your own, especially if you're not working with a treatment team or a doctor or coach or anything like that. It is very difficult to have a place to turn to. So please try to find some place for accountability, whether that is a family member that you trust or a friend or a guidance counselor or anybody. I also recently started a Facebook group for accountability and also just for support for anybody who is struggling. It's a free group to be a part of. I'll leave the link for that in the description down below if you would like to join. But that would be my biggest tip. Ground yourself in the reasons why you want to recover. ground yourself in the things that you are really looking forward to post eating disorder, right? What are you looking forward to? What do you want to do, or what do you want to achieve? Really ground yourself in your own values, and also understand that part of recovery is being incredibly forceful with yourself, doing things that you don't want to do, doing a lot of opposite action. So your eating disorder tells you to do one thing and we do the opposite. It does require a lot of force. So my main tip would be to find somebody to hold you to your goals and make sure that you are still making progress, you know, day to day, week to week. Finding a support group of any kind will probably be your best bet. Someone asked, what are my favorite baby names? I have a list, and I'm convinced that like 90% of people have a list on their phone. So let me pull up my list and I'll read a couple of them. Sophia, Maeve, Ren, Hazel, Wyatt, Penny, Grayson, Callie, Maverick, Marlo, Della, Iris, Ellison, Coy, Ophelia, and Etta. Those are some of my favorites. I have so many more on that list. I love baby names and I could talk about them all the time, but let me know what some of your favorite are, or if you liked any of the names on my list. Somebody asked if I'm ever tempted to go back into the dieting world, and I think that it would be a complete lie to say that it's never something that crosses my mind, but it is also not something that crosses my mind every day, every week, every month. It probably comes up maybe once or twice a year. And when this thought comes up, I'm just simply in a triggered headspace or triggered mindset. Maybe I got a comment on YouTube that sat poorly with me. Maybe I'm going through a lot of stress. Maybe I'm going through loss. Maybe I'm just in general in a depressed headspace. And this thought can sometimes pop up. But I also know that that thought is not particularly coming from me. It is coming from my ego. It is coming from my old eating disorder voice. It is coming from my inner critic, but it is not a thought that is sort of fully formed by me. And what's important is what you do with the thought, not having the thought in the first place, because we don't have full control over everything that we think. So it's impossible for me to say, I'm never going to think about dieting ever again. But when I do, I shut down that thought. And I remind myself why this is something that does not serve me and not a path that I want to go down. And I remind myself of my own experience with, you know, dieting and intentional weight loss in the past. And so am I tempted? No, but do I think about it? Yes, depending on how I'm feeling. And that's just the honesty of the situation. And again, it's not your fault for having thoughts like this, but what we do next is in our hands a little bit more. So that's how I like to frame it. And I just am very quick to shut down those thoughts. I definitely do not entertain them for long periods of time by any means. And if I did, then I would talk to a therapist, which kind of ties into one of the other questions that I got, which was asking if I'm in therapy. Currently, I'm not. I'm on a couple of wait lists right now, so I'm waiting to get back in that game. Somebody asked about my thoughts about exercise and eating disorder recovery. Should intense exercise be avoided? Absolutely. If you have exercise compulsion and exercise addiction, you should also not be exercising. If you have compensatory thoughts, so for example, if you exercise, you give yourself permission to eat more, you should also not be exercising. I think that it is definitely a case-to-case basis depending on an individual's reasoning for exercising in the first place, how they feel when they engage with movement, how they feel when they don't engage with movement. It's not something that I would say all across the board, absolutely nobody should do it. But I would say that in the majority of cases, it is not something that would be supportive of an eating disorder recovery journey. I think the last question that I'm going to answer today is, do you always love yourself, right? Is that the end goal? Is that what I promote? Am I always just fully head over heels in love with myself? And the answer to that question is hell no. Hell no. We're human. And the point of recovery and the point of, you know, having good self-image is not to be perfect, because perfect does not exist. It simply doesn't. I do not love myself all the time, but I also don't hate myself. There typically aren't days where I wake up and I just absolutely hate myself or hate the body that I'm in. Of course, I have better days, good body image days and poor body image days, but most of the time I simply accept myself as I am. So if I feel bloated and am a bit uncomfortable or whatever it might be, that might not be the comfiest place for me. I might just feel uncomfortable in my body, but I don't have the desire to change it. I just have the sort of desire to accept it as is and to say, well, this is what my state is right now, and that is okay. That is kind of the mantra that I use most of the time. It's just that I'm okay, reminding myself that I am safe, that I am taking care of my body, etc. But I think that what I want everyone to work on is simply accepting themselves at different stages. Accepting that our bodies are not meant to stay in one state for the rest of our life. They are meant to change, they are meant to age, they are meant to stretch. And that is so incredibly beautiful and wonderful, and truly not a gift that everybody gets to receive in this lifetime. So again, if you're struggling with loving yourself, why don't we scale it back and just start with accepting who we are, accepting the things that we cannot change, and kind of support ourselves in our dreams and our passions and our, wants and needs, etc. Chances are you've spent a really long time being your own worst enemy. So why don't you see what happens when you can become your own best friend? Just some food for thought. Anyway, I feel like we spoke about a bunch of different things in this video. It's nice to touch base every now and then and just talk about where I'm at, where you're at, any sort of questions that you might have. But yeah, if you like videos like this, make sure to give me a thumbs up and leave me a kind comment down below. Don't forget to do something kind for yourself today, friends, okay? Okay, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.